Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. Hope you've had a good week, and I hope you're looking forward to a nice weekend when it finally gets here. Let me see, we do have some class announcements today, and just like, there we go. So, I had a little note down here. How are we doing so far? We're behind, but by Tuesday, well before Tuesday, you'll have a revised schedule to see where we're headed. It's the fact that we're behind is not a big deal. It just means that we move a little bit slower than the regular in-class type of class, live face-to-face meeting, but we're fine. We'll just some things won't quite get done. Remember that we do have a midterm in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, in fact, and there'll be plenty of information forthcoming about exactly what's going to be on there and how you should prepare, all those things. That's coming up. Also, later today, likely, maybe tomorrow, you'll get your next homework assignment, and I will accompany that with a recorded video of working problems that are like your homework problems. I'm not going to post anything except the video, so no extra files or anything like that. But you'll get a video that describes step by step how to solve the problems in not all the homework problems, but some of them, just to get you kick-started. And I'll post that up later today, actually, and then I'll have these others available to you later. So the homework assignment itself. So there we go. We're talking about, we're in chapter 16 and we're talking about loans. And this is, of course, the way that you can initially get a hold of funding for projects when you'll incur expenses up front, and then you'll be paid for that work after the work is done, typically. So a loan is kind of the way of life in construction business, the industry. So today we're going to finish our loan payment plan spreadsheet, and I'm gonna give you maybe a little in-class exercise, time spent to think about and work on a couple of things. We'll talk about home mortgages, some closing costs, lines of credit. Those are the general topics for today. One thing that I didn't mention on Tuesday about loans, about credit, is, of course, the credit standing of you personally or your organization is critical. I did mention too interest rates and the rates that you pay for a loan, and it's also true that there are different kinds of loans. There are secured and unsecured loans, and secured loans are those loans that have some physical asset tied to them, so that if you don't pay the loan, that asset gets taken from you. For example, in most cases for an auto loan, if you don't pay your loan on time, they take your car, right? If you don't pay your home mortgage, they can come and take your home from you. So these are secured loans. There are also unsecured loans. If you have excellent credit, typically, and you have a good relationship with a lender, and by the way, it's always good to know your banker. And that's why a lot of times, while these, I bank at Wells Fargo, when the banking is very easy with large banks that are all over the place. but a good local bank with a contact with a good local banker is a good thing. Anyway, if you have that kind of relationship, sometimes you can have an unsecured loan. They just loan you some money and expect that you'll be able to pay it back with no particular collateral associated with it. Okay, let's go back to where we left off class on Tuesday, which is we were looking at these loan payment plans. And let's see here. And I'm going to have you work on this for just, I'm going to stop, kind of stop my video for a minute. And we're going to, well, this isn't what I wanted up there. So hang on just a second. Okay, there we go. And we left off here last time with payment plans. And there are 3 payment plans here. And I want you, we're gonna take 5 minutes way here at the first of class. Maybe let's give you maybe 10. Recall we had 3 payment plans here. And the first was, we're just gonna pay interest every month. And then, so interest accrues, that increases the amount that we owe at the end of the month. We paid the interest only. And then at the first of the next month, we were left with what we still owe. And we did that for the 4 months. And at the end of the 4th month, we paid back the interest and the principal on the loan. The second plan is that we pay 4 equal amounts. And recall, we looked at this, and this is just finding A given P. The P is 17,000. The interest rate is 1% per month. The number of months is 4 months. And this Excel function gives us the payment that we'll make each month so that we can make 4 equal payments at the end of each month and completely have paid off the loan. And the final one is pay the principal and interest in 1 month, in one payment at the end of the entire 4-month period. So let's look. I'm gonna get you started here, and then our little in-class exercise here for about 10 minutes will be that I would like for you to complete the tables here, but I'm going to get you started. Okay, remember this next column here. Let me do this. There we go. Technology is amazing, is it not? Okay, so here we have plan 2, and the interest accrued for the month is always going to be the interest rate, which is the 1%, times the amount owed, equal 0.01 times the amount owed, $170. And the total owed at the end of the month is always going to be the amount that you owed at the beginning of the month, plus any accrued interest for that period, for that month, 17,170. Now, here's the kind of the tricky part for this one. The principal payment is the amount that we pay down on the principal of the loan. So anything that we pay anything we pay above the interest payment, anything we pay above the 170 that we owe, will go toward the principal. It will pay down. It will reduce the $17,000 that we currently owe. So let's think about this calculation for just a minute. We are going to pay $4,356.78. $170 of that is interest. So the rest of that payment is payment on principal, payment on the principal of the loan. So our principal payment is going to equal our total payment here minus the accrued interest for that period. And you can see, so our total end of month cash flow is the sum of the interest and the principal on the loan. I hope that's somewhat clear. Now the next month is going to be exactly the same, except the principal amount, the amount we owe, is reduced by the amount of principal that we have now paid down on the loan. So here, there's two ways we could calculate this number, by the way. We could either say, okay, how much do we owe now? Well, it's how much we owe at the end of the month minus how much we paid. And that's correct. It's how much we owe minus how much. Let's do that just to see what it is, equal how much we owe minus how much we paid. 12, 8, 13, 22. There's another way to calculate that number. I like the second way, but the first way is entirely correct. The other way we can calculate this number is to take what we owed minus the principal, the amount of principal that we paid. 12, 8, 13, 22, same number. So if I don't care, whatever makes sense to you is a good way to calculate that. Now, here we go. Let me admit more people. So that's the start. And what I'd like for you to do is to complete this table, reflecting the 1% and the fact that we're increasing our, we'll increase the principal payments, because you know that this 1% of 12, 8, 13, 22 is less than 1% of 17,000. So our interest will decrease and our principal payment will increase. And finally, plan 3, I'm going to ask you to take that plan 3, and I didn't mention, but I did mention on Tuesday, and I'm sure you know that these spreadsheets, this spreadsheet here is posted. It's posted for our last class period, but it's posted there on Canvas for you to grab, and now you can fill it out. And I'd like for you to do this one from scratch. I'm not going to start it for you. Pay the principal and interest in one payment at the end of the 4th month. So you're not going to make any payments for the first 3 months, and see what effect that has. So there you have it. We're gonna take about 10. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes here, and I'm going to disappear, but I will pop myself back up, and at that time, I'm going to summarize it for you. I'll go through it incredibly quickly, but I'm going to summarize that for you, so that you'll see if you got that if you understand how this works, and it's important that you understand how this works, not only for the homework questions that are coming up, but just because it's this element of loan and payment plans is perhaps more important in your industry than in many others, because you will come up with some very creative financing plans and opportunities in order to fit your business model for your business. So so there we go. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll be back about 25 after, and we'll see how everybody did. Okay, we'll take that, and this is going to kind of be our class break. I know it's early, but it'll kind of be our class break as well. So there we go. Good luck. So those of you who I admitted while we're in our exercise probably wonder what's going on, and maybe thought, oh my gosh, I'm late getting to class and there's a pop quiz. Nah, we're just going through this exercise for those few of you who I admitted during our work time here. We're just working through this this interest example, the loan payment plans. And so here we go. This was the first one that we were working on. And so the interest accrued for the 4 equal payments plan, the interest accrued here is equal 0.01 times what we owe at the beginning of the month. Notice that our interest that we owe went down, right? We paid looks like about $42 less in interest in the second month than we did in the first month, and that's because we paid down part of the principal. The amount of money that we still owe the bank at the end of the second month will be just like before, the sum of what we owed plus the interest that's been accrued. So at the end of the second month, we owe the bank $12.9 thousand. We're going to make our same payment, but the amount of principal that we pay down on the loan will increase because the interest has decreased. And again, we can calculate that by taking the total amount that we pay for that month and subtracting the interest part of that. And so just like our interest payment went down by $42, our principal payment went up by $42. And you can see that there. And these numbers these numbers will continue to drop down, and I'm just going to drag that down. It should work. So notice at the end of the third year, month, end of the third month, we owe $85.84. The end of the that's the end of the second month. Beginning of the third month, we owe $85.84, and then at the beginning of the fourth month, we owe $43.13. We accrue $43.14 in interest, and we owe $43.5678. Hey, isn't that special? Because that's exactly what our payment is, $43.5678. And so at the end of the fourth month, we've paid off everything. With these 4 equal monthly payments, we're able to we were able to make that calculation, A given P, and now at the end, it just happens to work out like magic that at the end of the fourth month, we owe exactly what our payment is to pay off the loan.
I have a quick question.
Sure, ask away.
For the equal payments, are we going to have to be able to determine what the equal payment for each month is over a certain span of time, given the principal and the interest?
Sure.
Can you walk us through that calculation again? I think I missed that, how you got the 435 6.78.
Yeah, it's in this, it's right here in the spreadsheet, that Excel calculation. And I will be happy to talk with you about that after class, but we covered it about 3 weeks ago, and in the video, and it's in chapter 15, the very beginning of chapter 15. It's the annuity, find the annuity given a present value. So that legitimate question. I don't want to take up class time because that's something that I think most of the students know or understand how to do at this point. But there's the function right there that'll get it for you. And the B16 here is the $17,000 that you owe originally. Okay, I want to point something out, but if there's other questions that you'd like to ask about this particular table, I'll be happy to answer those. I do want to point out that this is true in every case where you're making these equal installments, these equal payments every period. And that is the amount of interest that you pay go down every period, and the amount of principal that you pay down, the principal that you pay applied to the loan goes up, so that, as you'll see on the home mortgage example, and as you'll find out when you work the homework problems, it can get downright ugly, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So just remember that interest is very high. Doesn't seem quite as high in this example, but it's a lot of your payment early, and then as time passes by, more and more of your monthly payment, in this case, more and more of your periodic payment goes toward principal. Okay, the last one, you know, once again, the techniques are the same. We just keep applying the 1% interest to whatever we owe at the beginning of the month. And for this last plan, plan 3, where we pay what's called a balloon payment, one lump sum at the very end of the 4 months. We have, so at the end of the first month, we accrue $170 in interest. We owe $17,170, but we pay nothing. So at the beginning of the second month, we owe $17,170, and our interest on that is $171.70, or 1% of what we owe. And at the end of the second month, we owe $17,341.70. We don't pay anything, nothing. So once again, we owe at the beginning of the third month the $17,341.70, and that continues. So once again, at the end of the third month, we owe $17,500 plus. That number, notice as that number grows, of course, the interest that we owe grows as well. So we just add more and more interest, and we owe more and more money. And finally, we owe at the very end, if we keep paying zero here, at the very end, we owe $17,690.27. And so we'll have to pay that, right? At the total end of the month, we will have to pay that $17,690.27.
Hey, sorry, where are you sleeping? I'm in class actually. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. I'll come back another time. You're good.
No. Big. Okay, so an interesting note on this one. What is, you know, if we have a P of $17,000 at time 0, what is the economically equivalent F, the future value, at the end of month 4 if there's 1% interest per month? And so I'm going to say, what's the future value? I'm going to find the future value, 1% per month, 4 months, and a present value of $17,000. Watch what that number is. It's 17,690.27. Exactly what we would owe in this plan, right? Because we made no monthly payments. Those were all zero, so we didn't have any accumulated payments that would have helped toward the end. We just, instead of $17,000 at time 0, we're going to pay back that entire future amount of 17,690.27. So we could have found that number easily with one simple calculation, but this this progression of increasing interest tells us how we got there, right? This explains, if you will, I think, where that difference, that $690.27 difference came from. And if I sum up all of these payments here, all of these interest accruals, if you will, if I sum all those up, what do you suppose I'll get? I'm thinking I'll get 690.27. Oh, surprise. So over the 4 months, we accrued that much interest, and we paid it all off at the end with a principal payment of $17,000 to pay off the original amount of the loan, and then the 690.27 to pay that interest that had been churning away and building up over that period of time. Interestingly, let's remember the 690.27. Let's add these up here. So we could compare. You shouldn't do this. This is really kind of because money has a time value, as I hope we all are in agreement at this point. Money has a time value, so $1 at the end of the first month is not the same as $1 at the end of the second month. Those are different kinds of dollars because 1% interest has gone into effect over that month. So summing these up really is kind of a bogus sum. It's not kosher. However, it is interesting to see that over the 4 months with a monthly payment plan where they're all equal, I pay a total of $427.11. Whereas if I in interest, that's my total interest that I paid. Whereas if I wait and pay the interest at the end, I will pay $690.27. So I'll pay $263 more in interest if I wait and pay it all at the end. And of course, that difference is the interest on the interest that's accruing that I'm owing. We could do the same thing up here. We could sum these up for the original plan of an interest-only loan, and you'll see that it's somewhere in between. So it's not quite as much as the interest all at the end, but it's more than the plan where you make the payments equal and uniform payments throughout the life of the loan. So that's that exercise. I hope it's been a bit illustrative. We're going to look at it a similar thing next with respect to. You have a question?
Quick question before we move on. That's okay.
Sure.
So for plan 2, does it make a difference if you pay the payment at the beginning of the month versus at the end of the month?
Yes.
Like as in price, does it make it cheaper if you pay at the beginning versus paying at the end?
Yes, it would. Because since the timing of the cash flows is obviously important, if you paid that first of the month, you would essentially reduce the interest that you owed. So we'd come back here to, not to put too fine a point on it, but we would come back here at the first of the month, 17,000. We would make our payment and then calculate the interest. And obviously that would be a reduced interest amount. So if you can arrange it with the lender, you are certainly better off doing it that way. Now let me also say that in this case, and in really all cases, if you make a payment at the beginning of the period, then what you're essentially doing, let's use these numbers as an example, you are essentially not borrowing $17,000, but you're borrowing $12,650, because you're using, you're using $4,350 of your own money up front with the 17, that kind of offsets the 17,000 that you're receiving from the lender. So you could also look at it that way, in that it's going to be less because you're really effectively borrowing less money from the lender.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, you bet. Any other questions? Okay. Let me stop sharing for a minute so that I can go back and get to the next spreadsheet. Okay. This is what we're going to look at here is called an amortization schedule. Now, accountants would, I think, sometimes balk at the use of that term amortization, because they claim, some of them would claim that this is, that term should be used for something else. But it's commonly used in loans and loan repayment schedules as an amortization schedule. And this illustrates your payments on a loan across the period. So this is a little bit like the table we just looked at, but this is for a home loan. And again, this spreadsheet is posted on Canvas. I originally planned to cover it last class, and it's there under the last class folder. But here we go. Let's look at this. We have a house price of $300,000. I've put in here a down payment of $50,000. It could be, we can change that, but let's say we did $50,000 down. The mortgage amount then is the amount that you're actually going to finance. This is the loan amount. Over here, we have the interest rate. Interest rates have dropped since I originally built this. So I'm going to, well, let's leave it the same for now. We'll change it later and look at some of the effects of the interest rate. And this is a 30-year loan, not a 15-year. If you're going to have a mortgage, I would encourage you to have a 15-year mortgage. However, 30 years are more popular and more prevalent. So I stuck with a 30-year period for the mortgage repayment here. And given these data, this is our monthly payment. And you can see the calculation here of the monthly payment. First of all, I took the interest rate. This interest is the APR. Let me add that APR here. Remember the annual percentage rate. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's at the very beginning of chapter 16. And you'll notice on the homework, I revisit that. There's a question on the homework that revisits that annual percentage yield and annual percentage rate relationship. You'll want to revisit that. And on the video that you'll see for that where I worked similar problems, I stepped through that as well. But since this is the APR and we're making monthly payments, this is an annual rate, we're making monthly payments, it is okay. You need to make sure that it's compounded monthly. But if it doesn't say it's compounded monthly, you're okay making the assumption that it is. So that means that our interest rate per month will be our APR divided by 12. That's how we'll handle that for this class. It's kind of fast and loose, but we're okay. So our interest rate is the interest rate. No, I've called it just a brief sidebar. So notice up here, this cell E1. You go in the upper right, you'll see this word interest. I typed that in myself. You can just, if you go, oh, that's years. So I've labeled this. I've given it a variable name, if you will, and this variable name is interest. This variable name here is years. In any other cell, like right here, this calculation, notice up here in the upper left, that's B4, tells me what cell I'm in. Well, I can highlight that and I could type in a new name. I could call this payment. I think I will. There we go. And now that is my payment. And wherever else in this spreadsheet I referred to payment, it would go back to cell B4 and give me whatever values in there. So that's just an Excel. You don't have to know that, but it's very helpful. Our payment to find our A is the interest rate is our APR divided by 12. Our number of periods is years times 12. So this will give us 360 months. The interest then is a monthly interest rate, and the number of periods is in months. This will be 360 months over which to repay the loan. And the last value is amount. And the amount I labeled up as the label here in cell B3, the mortgage amount is that argument. So, and that's the present value, of course. So there we go. We know that over 30 years, month after month after seemingly endless month, we will make payments of $1,419.47 to repay this loan. Now, a very brief, this is not a tutorial on home mortgages. It's on interest and how loans work and repayments work. But an aside on home mortgages is that this is not your payment. Typically, there's something called an escrow. And escrow is a way that your lender not only will pay your, the lender wants to make sure that you keep and maintain the property, and that the property is protected, because the property is the collateral. The property is that thing on which your loan is secured. So it's important for the lender that property maintain its value. It maintains its value a couple of key ways. One is that it's insured. So it's insured against damage, fire, your homeowner's insurance. There is, I don't want to get off into insurance, but your homeowner's insurance protects your home. And if there's a fire, it will pay for the damage, and you'll have your home will be refreshed and, you know, put back to where it was, as much as that can be done. The other thing is that you pay taxes. So you have property taxes that you pay on your home based on its assessed value, and the government, typically the county, will assess the value of your home, and you'll pay a certain tax rate, pennies or less than pennies on the dollar, on the assessed value of that home. Well, typically you make insurance payments and these tax payments twice per year. And what the lender will do is the lender will pay those for you. You prepay them to the lender, and the lender then pays those taxes and insurance when they're due, because the lender wants to make sure that those payments are happening. So what you will owe on insurance and taxes are included in your monthly payment. So this monthly payment of $14,1947 will grow to something like probably $1,700 or $1,800 per month is what you'll be paying your lender. And out of that extra amount, your lender will pay the insurance and the taxes. So this is called PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And that total payment will be something around $1,800, I get. I mean, it depends on where you live and what the tax rate is and what your insurance charges you and all those things. So that's just a mortgage thing for when you plan to buy a home at some point. I hope many of you buy a home. It's a wonderful thing. And you're sick of your crummy apartments, right? So this payment, I just want you to know, this payment will only be to repay the loan itself. It's not, your mortgage really won't be that attractive to you. Okay, so there we go, enough of that sidebar. This table is built exactly like that last table that we built with the loan repayment plans, loan payment plans. So we have our initial balance at the end of the first month, $250,000. The interest on that is simply calculated as our monthly interest. That's our interest, our APR divided by 12. Our monthly interest times what we owed at the beginning of the month. Hopefully you get that at this point. There's our payment. So this column here just is the payment repeated month after month after month. There's how much principal we will pay down, and the principal is our payment minus the interest that we owe. So it's cell D7 here, the payment amount, less the interest that was accrued for that period, and that leaves us with a balance, a loan balance at the end of the first month of $249,726.36, which becomes the amount that we owe at the beginning of the second month, and that starts the process all over again. So you can see that with a home mortgage, you are paying a boatload of interest on your loan. The longer the loan period, the more pronounced this effect is. And that is that the interest just chews up the overwhelming majority of your monthly payment. And you can see as we drop down, let's go down to, because of a problem that you'll be having with the homework, let's drop down to 120 month. So we're 10 years in here, right? So it's one third of the 30 years is gone. You just made you're making your 120th payment, your payment at the end of the 10th year of the loan. And you're still making the same payments. Now, notice that the interest that you're paying has reduced considerably, a little over $200. But notice out here that remember, we borrowed $250,000, and after 10 years, you still owe over $200,000 on that loan, and that's kind of depressing. Because the majority of your payments have gone toward interest, the amount of principal you've been able to pay down just has been very little. And so in 10 years, instead of paying off a third of the loan, because that's a third of the time period, and a third of a $250,000 loan would be about $80,000 you would hope to have paid off. You've only paid off half that much, approximately. And so that's an interesting effect of these loans. And the good news is that the interest does continue to decrease. The amount of principal that you pay, that's this column, does continue to increase slowly, albeit slowly, and then it starts to pick up quite a bit. And way down here, as we approach 360, notice that we're paying $1,000 in principal every month. So our interest is reduced greatly. And till we come to the end. And when we come to the end, we make our last payment. We only pay $6 in interest that month, and we pay it off, and we're done. We have a big party, and everybody celebrates. If anybody keeps their house for 30 years and actually takes that long to pay off their loan. Now, these numbers down here, these are the sums of these columns. So this is the sum of the principal payments, and it should sum to the total amount of the loan that we originally had, and indeed it does. So we have actually paid $250,000 in principal on our loan to pay it off. This is our total payments. So over the 30 years, we've paid for our $250,000 loan, $300,000 house. We have paid over $500,000 in total payments. Once again, summing these up is really misleading, because 30 years from now, if you kept this loan this long and you were gainfully employed during that time, 30 years from now, a $1,400 payment is pocket change. Maybe not quite pocket change, but $1,400 30 years from now, if we brought that back to the present, which I'm not going to do, but you could do a P given F for that amount, bring it back 30 years. It's really not that much. It's going to be, $400 equivalent or something. I'm guessing. I'm just guessing. And we notice that we've paid more in interest than we did for the price of the house. So our mortgage was $250,000, but we paid $261,000 in interest, and that's kind of an ouch, right? That's quite painful. So I want you to have this spreadsheet. This is one way you can brute force some answers to questions. I don't encourage that, but you can do that. And you can also see the effect in this spreadsheet. You can see the effect of interest rates. Of course, back when I bought my first home, my house price was considerably less than $300,000. Considerably. Let's say it was only 5 digits, not 6. But my interest rate was 13%, which is are you kidding me? 13%. This was the early 80s, post Carter presidency. The economy was in the tank. Anyway, and so if I had that same kind of house price at 13% interest, you might notice that you would you'd pay $1 million for a $300,000 house. I mean, over time, and you'd pay 3 times as much for the interest as you do for the principal of the loan. So interest rates make a difference, make a huge difference. I would certainly hope that you'd never face that level of interest during your lifetime. It was a rare event in U.S. history, actually, to see interest that high. In some other countries, that's the way of life. So count your blessings for where you live, and that the interest rate is reasonable. And today, the interest rates are about 3% for a fixed rate 30-year loan. It's about 3%. So that's very attractive, and you can see that your payments are $400 less than with a 5% loan. That's, again, the effect, the difference in the interest makes a very, very big difference in these kinds of problems. Okay, that's it for the mortgage spreadsheet. We have a couple of more things to discuss, and I want to illustrate for you here with respect to loans and repayments. The next topic that I want to talk about is closing costs. And you know, I meant to get my hands on my closing documents for my house to share those with you, just because it's fresh in my mind. It was just a couple of months ago. But one thing about loans is that you sometimes are charged fees or costs up front for the loan, and by doing so, the net effect of that is that effectively your interest is higher. And I'm going to show you how that works here in just in an example problem. Let me just go to this sheet and see if this makes sense. So some loans, most loans actually, do have these upfront expenses of some sort, and quite often these are all lumped together in something called closing costs. And much like a car dealer will have additional fees, transportation costs, things that they lump in to increase their profit. And I know there are some costs involved. I'm not berating car sales. Everybody has a right to make. I'm a capitalist, so what the market will bear, caveat emptor, all those things. But these extra costs do, in effect, provide additional profit to the lending agency. So these expenses are upfront, and they don't explicitly necessarily, but effectively increase the interest rate. And again, these often are lumped together and they're called closing costs. Let's look at an example to see how these work. So we have a loan of $20,000, and let's say that all together we have closing costs of $3,000, and that very well might be the case. Sometimes some things that might get lumped in are things like loan origination fees, which are closing costs. It's like a like when you sign up for let me see, you got cable, and when you sign up, or your cell phone, you know, you add a line to the cell phone and they charge a $40 connection fee or something up front. And you and I both know that it's somebody types your phone number in and the computer takes care of connecting it up. So it's not like it costs them $40, but they charge that. There's also a way to, in this example here, I've run off the bottom of the page. I've used 6% per year APR. Sometimes on some loans, it used to be, and I'm not sure how popular this is anymore. I think you can still do it. You can buy down that rate. So you could say, ooh, I don't want to pay 6% per year. I want to pay 5% per year. And the lender will say, okay, if you give me X amount today, and maybe it's a percent, like a 1% of the loan today. So for this problem, 1% of that loan would be what, $2,000. So if you pay me $2,000 today, I'll drop that down to 5% as an interest rate on your loan. So your monthly payments are lower. That's an interesting kind of trade-off, and that may be something that you know, that would be in the loan contractual arrangement. And so the question here that I have in this case, if we have a loan of $200,000, closing costs of $3,000, an interest rate of 6% per year, the APR, and let's say that we're making monthly payments, what's the true interest rate? That's the question that I'd like to answer. What is the true interest rate for this loan? Let me move some stuff so I can turn the page here, and let's solve this problem. So there's the data, the loan data, Loan Ranger, loan data, and I want to make sure I get as much on here as I can. So we remember that P is equal to $200,000. I'm already off the page. $200,000. I, the interest rate, okay, we said that it's 6%, but that's the APR. Let's divide it by 12 to get the monthly interest rate. That's 0.5% per month. And that's okay. And we want to find the A. What's our A for that loan? Well, our A is equal to P times A given P, and 0.5% interest, 360 periods, 360 months. And now if you can't do that, you need to go back and look at the class videos and Shuey. You should know how to do that. And if you make that or do it in Excel, you know, I'm 100% for that. This is $1,199 and a dime. So this is our monthly payment. We have agreed we make this monthly payment. We're excited about that. That's wonderful. Now we're making that monthly payment. But we have these closing costs. Okay. So what if the closing costs done effectively? We're still making these monthly payments, that's fine. But these monthly payments are now really remember, we had to put down $3,000 at the loan origination at the meeting. We borrowed $200,000, but it costs us $3,000. So in effect, we received $200,000, but out of pocket, we spent $3,000 for closing costs. So this is $197,000 was the net effect. That was the net transaction was, you give me 200,000, I'll give you 3,000. So I am up $197,000. That is effectively what you borrowed. So this is effectively the P. We calculate the A based on the P of $200,000, and that tells us what our payment is. But effectively, we borrowed $197,000. So we can write this equation however we'd like, but the bottom line is our P, 197,000. P is equal to A, 1199.10 times P given A, some interest rate, I'll say I star 360. We could have written this A and A given P if you wanted to, but here's the bottom line. This is the relationship. We have a P, we have an A, but we want to find out what is the interest rate that equates that A on an economically equivalent basis to the P. There's an example in chapter 17, an example that runs through this as well. So we want to solve for I, and I'm going to switch gears on you now. So let's, remember or write down these numbers. We effectively borrowed $197,000, and our monthly payment is $11.99 and a dime. So we have that. And to solve this, we're about out of time. To solve this, we're going to Excel, and so here we go. Here's my spreadsheet, and I have a P that was $197,000. That's my effective P, and my effective or my true A. This is what I'm really paying. And now I want to find the interest rate. Let me see. N is 360. Now remember, I'm going to have to. This is a payment A. I need that to be negative. There we go. I've got a positive P and negative A. Otherwise, my formula will choke. And I need to find the interest rate. That's fine. And the interest is going to be, I'll use the rate function. Rate. Number of periods is 360. The present value is 197. The future value is going to be, I'm sorry, C2. I jumped the gun in my formula. The next function argument is payment. So there we go. And then I have present value. And the future value is 0. I don't need to mess with that. The type we don't touch. And guess, I'm not going to give it a guess. I'm just going to see what happens here. And that should be my my interest rate. And there's that. Now remember, this is a monthly interest rate. These are monthly cash flows, number of months. So this is the interest rate. And so the APR is going to be the interest rate times 12. And that is the, while the APR was supposed to be 6%, we now know it's 6.14%. And we could find the effective interest rate, the APY, and I'm not going to go through the calculation because we're out of time, but it's 6.32%, as it turns out. We'll talk about that next time. Thank you for your patience. We're essentially done with chapter 16, but we'll do some wrap up on Tuesday. And I'll go through this calculation for you. Watch for postings for homework. Have a great weekend. And I will see you next Tuesday. Go Hokies.